Hello everyone, today I'm recording a video to help you understand plan scope management, the first process in scope management in PMBOK. Let's try to understand how does this fit in our day-to-day work, what is needed and what is important on the PMP examination. I'll try to give you a personal experience and an example also of how we manage the scope for a project. Let's get started. So plan scope management. Plan scope management is very important because the project success depends on how we are going to manage the scope of the project. A significant impact of the project success is dependent on the plan scope management. What happens in plan scope management? Here we are defining how are we going to plan the entire scope of the project, how are we going to validate the scope, how are we going to control the scope, and then how are we ensuring that the customer is happy with this, the acceptance criteria is being met. So these are things that we are going to look into plan scope management. How do we define the scope, how do we validate it, how do we control it? Okay, then the project success depends on the planning of the scope. Why? Because any changes to the scope will have a significant impact on the time, cost, resources, quality, risk. So your scope is the driving factor. If the scope is more, work is more, okay, more people, more time, more money. Scope is less, work is less people, less time, less money. Scope is complicated, risk is higher, right? So if the scope is clear, waterfall. If the scope is unclear, it's kind of progressive elaborate, you'll go for an agile approach. Scope is clear, you'll do a time and you'll do a fixed price project. Scope is unclear, step by step progressive elaborated, you'll do a time and material project, right? So scope is very important. So planning the scope is very important. You'll also have to decide what kind of development approach you're going to do or use for the entire project in plan scope management. Now, next thing is who is needed when you're planning the scope. You will need the customer, you will need your leadership team or the sales team who's going to kind of have done the deal. Then you will have to work with the product owners, you'll have to work with the BSAs, the business analyst or the business system analyst, okay, because these people kind of interface with the end users based on what has been allotted on the statement of work or the contract or the charter. You will have to engage with these people and then finalize on the scope. Okay, so that's very important. Like for example, we were doing one project which had like 60 user stories for one of the organizations. So the 60 user stories was kind of, these were listed down in the SOW. That was a reference. Then we went and then we refined those stories in the discovery session. Right? We start collecting more requirements. Now we'll talk about that later. 60 user stories becoming more than 60, and then we start collecting requirements. Then it becomes a defined scope. These are all two different processes. We'll talk about them later. So you start engaging with these people. Okay, maybe a client project manager also is getting involved. So they all are needed. And then how is it finalized? How are you finalizing the scope? So you will finalize the scope with discussions, meetings with subject matter experts, with the stakeholders who are interested in what they want from the project. Okay, so meetings will become a very pivotal point in the project to finalize the scope. Then next, what are the key outputs of this process? Okay, plan scope management is a process name. The output is scope management plan. That is the key output. Second key output is requirements management plan. Scope management plan, requirements management plan. The process name is plan scope management. Okay, so those are the key outputs. So now next question is, what is needed to make this scope management plan, right? So when you're planning the scope of the project, you need the charter, you need subject matter experts, you will go see the previous projects. So these things are needed, and then you'll have discussions, and then the quality management plan you'll need, the development approach you'll need. So all these things are needed to make the scope management plan, right? Then what is it made up of, the scope management plan? The scope management plan is made up of your project scope statement. what you will do, what you will not do. Then your work breakdown structure. How do you create a work breakdown structure? That has been written in that. Then after, what is the baseline of the scope? So these things are kind of written down in the project scope statement, right? Then a very important point, many people get confused with the requirements management plan. Requirements management plan is used to document all the requirements. Once you have documented, you'll analyze them. After you analyze them, you'll prioritize them, and then you'll track them, and then you'll deliver those. Okay, so things like requirement traceability matrix and all will be related to this. Okay, so these things are done in the requirements management plan. Overall, to summarize, this process is very important because you are planning how are you going to deliver the scope to the customer. How will you meet the acceptance criteria? So all these things you're going to do. Thank you for watching my video. This is Arham Faraz. If you like my video, please do drop a comment and let me know what all videos you would like to see. Bye bye. Have a nice day.